Before we get to the point of the video, I want to start by saying what this video isn't. This video is not an attack or criticism of any way towards Webtoon creators, be they canvas or originals, or towards the Webtoon format as a whole, because I know there are a lot of people out there that hate Webtoons and webcomics with unreasonable vitriol. It's also not a video going over Webtoon drama because I don't give a fuck about that. This video is a recap of my experience as a Webtoon canvas creator, author, writer, and artist. Any criticism is directed explicitly and exclusively towards Webtoon, the platform and company, and nothing and no one else. With that out of the way, hi, I'm Shima Mom, or Shima for short. Digital illustrator, Houseki no Kuni obsessor, and author of the fantasy drama webcomic Crystal Age. And I've been posting on Webtoon for over 4 years now. I started making my webcomic in 2020, just months before He Who Shall Not Be Named hit, and started publishing it not long after on Tapas and Webtoon simultaneously. Although nowadays I've dropped Tapas and picked up Namikami and Global Comics instead. Despite my branching out into a lot of different platforms, Webtoon remains my main one since that's day one right there. And also it's the platform where my audience and potential for audience is the biggest. It also has a very lovely and supportive community through the Webtoon Discord server filled with creatives of all places and walks of life to discuss with. However, maybe it is precisely because it's my main comic publishing platform and the one that I've been on the longest that I have such a mouthful to say about it. A lot of it. Not particularly nice. So what was my overall experience with Webtoon for these past 4 going on 5 years? It works. It's a website, you can post your comics there, people can read it, so it passes the bare bones test. Webtoon came out in 2004 as Navier Webtoon in South Korea and then globally in 2014 as Line Webtoon. Don't worry, I'm not about to give you a history lesson. I'm just mentioning Webtoon's age because honestly, sometimes it shows. If you're exclusively a reader, this is not something you will notice. To be honest, from a reader's perspective, Webtoon is perfectly clean, functional, and intuitive, and its design is fairly modern, especially compared to some other older platforms like itself. However, it's from a creator's point of view that the tools Webtoon offers start to feel a little rusty. For starters, there are a lot of features that are considered basic that are just straight up missing, and the ones that aren't missing leave quite a lot to be desired. For example, let's take a quick look at the Create a New Series page. You can put in the series title, a basic summary, a vertical thumbnail for desktop, a square thumbnail for mobile, and the very recently added age rating system. Don't you feel like it's missing something? Unlike its peers, old and new, Webtoon doesn't offer features such as tags or keywords, which makes it easier both for readers to find what they want to read and for creators to advertise what their series is about. This may not seem like that big of an issue at first until you realize that this makes Webtoon's search engine rely solely on the title, genre, and summary and the creator's username and nothing else, making this search engine essentially useless for anyone looking for something new. They can only ever find series if they already know the name of the series or the creator that they are looking for. This is even worse for creators themselves who are looking to advertise their work, since within the site itself they can only rely on 1, appearing on the newly released page of the canvas part of the site, which a smaller amount of people will actually check out at all, since most readers only ever see the main page, 2 being miraculously chosen for one of their canvas feature sections such as Hidden Gems or Rising Stars, which is a whole different beast. Or 3, advertising themselves on the work of other creators, which is embarrassing and annoying on both sides. Any other type of exposure has to come from outside the site itself in other social media platforms. Overall, it's just one big nuisance, and it's odd that such a basic feature isn't available. I do understand that tags can and have been overused in order to maximize exposure, but that can simply be fixed by limiting the amount of tags each series can have. And speaking of limits, the genres. There are 23 genres that you can pick from in the selection available, and you can only pick 2 of them. The selection of genres to choose from is pretty good in my opinion. My only grip is that I think it could use the addition of adventure, since that's a very common one and it's odd that it's missing, and isekai, since there are a lot of those floating webtoon, and they all end up falling under fantasy, and there's quite enough of them to warrant their own genre. My main burden with the genres is the fact that you can only pick 2 with no options for subgenres. This is odd for me because off the top of my head I can't really think of a single piece of media that I can confidently describe as only 2 genres. Even within Webtoon itself, Remarried Empress and Lord Olympus are fantasy drama and romance. Cursed Princess Club could be considered slice of life, fantasy, drama, comedy, and romance. Your Throne could be fantasy, drama, action, mystery, maybe even thriller. Again, I understand that limitless genres could lead to people tagging their series as all genres for maximum advertisement, but that's easily fixable with some reasonable limitations and moderation. I think the option for 4 genres max, or even 2 genres and a couple subgenres would be good enough, and it would be one more way that creators could spread their comics within the site itself, similar to tags. Now, I've had this video idea for a while, to be honest, and I've been procrastinating, and in that meantime, some of the features that I felt were missing were actually added in, such as the ability to mark your series as ongoing, hiatus, or finished. This is a feature that I find very useful and functional, my only grip being that it took way too long for them to add it. Another thing about the create a new series page that they also only added very recently, and that was met with a lot of backlash for a variety of reasons, is the content rating self-assessment. Content rating is something that should have been there, either from the beginning or at least as soon as possible, but it was only added in 2024. Before that, you could choose to mark your series as mature if you felt it needed to be marked as such, or if you were advised to. Otherwise, it could be assessed by anyone at any moment with no warning, meaning webtoons were separated into all ages and mature, and nothing else. This is a problem. We have content warnings on media for a reason. There are things that may be appropriate for teens but not for kids, for young adults but not for teens, and things that are only appropriate and catered for mature, fully fleshed adults. The fact that it took so long to add such a basic feature is a problem that's going to repeat itself over and over again. And it's an even bigger problem when the feature itself is dysfunctional and controversial. On Webtoon, before the content rating, if your series was marked as mature, then it could not be included in the feature pages for Canvas. This did not apply to originals, many of which had depictions of mature themes, meaning that Canvas authors that wanted to tell mature stories regardless of whether they tackle themes of sexuality, substance, emotional or physical abuse, existential, violent, or death-related themes, or if their characters thus occasionally said fuck uncensored, were thrown under the bus and left to fend for themselves through other platforms. This is no longer the case on a technical level. Some mature series occasionally get picked up for features, but it's quite rare. And this is not a question of Webtoon not wanting controversial or mature stories on their platforms because of a younger audience, because if that's the case, then that's unbelievably hypocritical of them, since again, Webtoon originals, which are the thing a majority of readers are gonna go to when they open Webtoon, don't get the hush-hush treatment. Series with a high amount of sexual content, violence, and controversial themes such as slavery, abuse, and misogyny are proudly displayed in Webtoon's front page. So it kinda makes no sense for them to want to hide Canvas series which have the same themes and most of the time to a much thinner extent, since the censor hammer tends to be quite tough on them. Before I move on, I want to clarify real quick that this isn't an attack on Webtoon originals or their creators. This is explicitly and exclusively a criticism of Webtoon itself and its hypocritical practices. In order to mark your series age rating, you also have to have a self-assessment quiz of sorts, rather than choosing it yourself, which led to a lot of creators being unhappy with the rating that their content received, as they felt it wasn't in line with their series. Notice how all of the issues I've mentioned so far have had one major thing connecting them, and that's hindering creator growth with choices that seem nonsensical. I say seem because, and I mean this in a derogatory manner, from a business standpoint, I suppose it doesn't make sense to waste resources into features that would only scatter the public's attention from what they actually want to publish. Another thing I have a big problem with is the fact that you don't get notifications for anything. When you're a reader, you're constantly bombarded with notifications of new series or updates to series you're subscribed to or creator page posts. But when you're a creator, you don't get notifications for new followers, new comments, likes, or milestones. Neither are PC or mobile. You need an outside browser extension for that, which is insane. This is another basic feature that every other social media or media sharing platform known to man has. So it's kind of crazy to me that this isn't something that's already in place. You could say that bigger creators would get way too overwhelmed with the amount of comments and subs they get, especially the originals, which have millions of subs. But if you can allow for notifications, you can just as easily allow for an option in the settings to turn them off. There is also the creator page, which upon launch I remember was kind of a disappointment, but being completely honest, I don't use it enough to give my opinion of it. If you're a Canvas creator that uses the creator page with frequency, please comment down below your thoughts and experiences on it. I think it's functional, really, but it's nothing to write home about or complain about. Moving away from the created series page and going into the publishing chapters page, and oh boy. Once you've made your series, you can publish n or several chapters. In the publish a chapter page, you have the choice to give it a title, a creator's note at the end of the chapter, upload a thumbnail, save chapter as draft, publish now or schedule for a later date, enable or disable comments, and attach a file. I have 3 main gripes with the publish a chapter section. Firstly, one thing that really bothers me is the lack of an option to add content warnings to individual chapters. You can make your own and slap it at the start of a chapter, but nonetheless, having the choice would still be good. Another one is actually on the manage chapters page, where you don't have an option to switch chapter places around easily. It's very bare bones and dated, but that's the trend with all of WEBTOON's creator tools, to be honest. Now comes my main gripe with this, which is the goddamn 20 megabyte file limit. You see, people who have me on Discord know how much I despise this thing. I don't know much about coding or site hosting or image hosting at all. I don't know how much it costs or how complicated it is, but surely, in the year of our Lord and Savior, 2025, surely the billion-dollar company can afford to raise this thing just a little bit. Maybe 20 megabytes was a lot back in 2004. Hell, maybe it was a lot back in 2014. But it is 2025, and WEBTOON has a $1 billion network. So please tell me why every time I make a chapter, I have to save every page as a disgusting JPEG and then compress it further in order to post it on WEBTOON. And WEBTOON exclusively. I don't have to do this on the cool cousin Global Comics. I don't have to do this for humble little indie brother Namikomi. I don't even have to do this on Discord or Patreon. So why the fuck do I have to do this on the biggest comic hosting platform on the internet? 20 megabytes? 20. For a whole chapter of a fucking comic? You are insane. You are insane. I am insane. This is not viable. How is this a thing? Back in 2022, WEBTOON announced an action comic contest. The requirements for being viable to participate was to submit a comic that had one chapter with at least 60 panels in full color, with a story that would serve as a pilot of sorts to be picked as a WEBTOON original in the future. So, something with an intro, a middle, and an end. You see the problem with this, right? You see the problem with this, right? First of all, it's very hard to get a beginning, middle, and end with only 60 panels. So most submissions would need to go over that. Second of all, an actual comic, which usually requires some cool visual effects for extra flair and in full color, all of that in one chapter. No splitting it in two, something that I've had to do in the past because of the limit. No splitting it in two. One chapter. 20 megabytes. 20 fucking megabytes? 20 fucking, how? Every single time I complain about this, I feel insane because how? How is this possible? How is this normal? It's a comic hosting site. We sell images here, sir. 20 megabytes is not enough. This is not an issue I find in other platforms either. So I really don't get it. The max I found is platforms with an individual file size limit, which is still annoying but understandable, or an image height and width limit. I'm not asking for 500 terabytes here, but 20 megabytes is not enough in 2025. It is just not enough. You can still see the images after the compression, sure, but they get so compressed that they look dusty and lose a lot of their quality, which is incredibly frustrating after spending so long trying to make everything look nice and pretty. I need to calm down. Everything is fine. Anyways, since I'm talking about personal experience here, what are some good things I found about Webtoon? The community is actually quite nice and friendly and supportive, honestly. Like, they all have an understanding of how tough it is to make comics, and they just kind of support each other through all the highs and lows of the comic niche. The moderators for the Discord and social media platforms are also really nice, to be honest. Like, yeah, babes, get that bag, slay. Webtoon is also the big boy. It is to comics what YouTube is to video and what Google is to search engines. You just kind of need to rely on it in a very annoying parasitical way because it is the biggest fish in the pond. Actually, that may kind of a negative too. I'm sorry. Anyways, it is the platform where I get the most feedback from my followers. Maybe that's just due to sheer size, but I really do miss the amount of comments I get on Webtoon on the other platforms I post to. It just feels like the people there are more comfortable sharing what they feel about what they're reading. Guess what I'm trying to say is, it is what it is, you know? Webtoon is the platform for comic reading. That is undeniable. You can post on 10 different platforms at the exact same time, at the exact same rate and consistency, and 9 times out of 10, the platform that will have the most return in terms of followers and interactions will be Webtoon, at least in the long run. Which is frustrating, considering that it has so much missed potential and so many missing features. Webtoon is ultimately a company, and as a company, it will always treasure its financial growth over the well-being and happiness of its creators. All that is to say that it is made for readers, not creators themselves, even if creators are the ones keeping the company afloat in the first place. If you're looking for an audience, post on Webtoon, but also post somewhere else as backup, such as Global Comics, which is actually relatively big, especially compared to other Webtoon competitors, and the little brother Namikomi, which is an indie company with a larger focus on creator comfort that is very new. You can also try sites like Tumblr or make your own website for your comic if you have the time. And I suppose this is it for the video. If you're a Webtoon creator, please tell me your own experiences with the platform in the comments down below. I love to hear your thoughts and to know if I missed anything, be it negative or positive. If you like the video and the art that's been playing in the background, please make sure to subscribe me and follow me on other social media where I post most of my art. Also, if you like fantasy, drama, gems, and pretty boys, do make sure to check out my webcomic Crystal Age through the links in the description. I'm Shima, have a good read.